Well, good afternoon. It's your old Coffin Dodger back here again. Today is July the 31st, 2022. I'm starting out here on the Sunday. I'm not sure when I'm going to be finished, but at the end, I will say whatever date it is before I put it out on air. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I don't suppose I have an awful lot of news for you in the sense that you won't have heard it before. But as I have said repeatedly in my previous podcasts, it's all about perspective. And I bring whatever news I have from my perspective, or I look at world events or Irish events from my own perspective, and I share that with you. After that, it's up to yourself what you make of it, and I will drop links as usual below the podcast so that you can do a little more research on whatever I'm talking about. I'm going to insert a few other voices today again, because I think it's more beneficial to hear stuff out of the horses' mouths than me paraphrasing these people.
And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there.
That, of course, was Joe Biden, the President of the United States of America. That's if you believe that the person you see on television is actually the president. There is somebody else behind a mask that looks pretty much like him, but in my opinion, Joe Biden is no longer with us. Either that or he is being held hostage in a care home and somebody else is calling the shots. But I just wanted to insert that voice and another one to add to the numerous people who have spoken of the New World Order. I suppose it was inevitable that things couldn't stay the same forever, that things had to change, but I certainly wasn't expecting the transition to take place in my lifetime, and I certainly wasn't expecting it to happen with the force and the iniquity that we are observing and we are a victim of right now. But then again, we have George Soros, one of the main movers and shakers on the planet with regard to money and to investments. We have him on record saying that he had no conscience whatsoever in his dealings with money and with banking, with trading, and even if it meant a country going totally bankrupt, it didn't matter to him as long as his investments made the return that he was expecting. Of course, the expression New World Order itself implies that there is and there was an old world order. And in relation to that, I found a very interesting article from 1992. It's called titled The Birth of the Global Nation. And it was written by a person called Strobe Talbot in June 1992. It appeared here in Time magazine, I think. And he writes here, all countries are basically social arrangements, accommodations to changing circumstances. No matter how permanent and even sacred they may seem at any one time, in fact, they are all artificial and temporary. Through the ages, there has been an overall trend towards larger units claiming sovereignty and paradoxically a gradual diminution of how much true sovereignty any one country actually has. And it goes on to say, empires were a powerful force for obliterating natural and demographic barriers and forging connections among far-flung parts of the world. The British left their system of civil service in India, Kenya, and Guyana, while the Spaniards, Portuguese, and French spread Roman Catholicism to almost every continent. Another paragraph says that from time to time, the best minds wondered whether this wasn't a hell of a way to run a planet. Perhaps national sovereignty wasn't a great idea after all. Dante in the 14th century, Erasmus in the 16th century, and Grotius in the 17th century all envisioned international law as a means of overcoming the natural tendency of states to settle their differences by force. So there we have it. He was predicting through these people, he was predicting the New World Order back then in 1992, because the three main pillars of the New World Order are financial system, spirituality, and law and order. The plans for the New World Order, of course, go way, way back, as we heard from that article there, that people were talking about it, intellectuals were talking about it in the 14th century, 15th or 17th century. But it really began to take shape with the foundation of the World Economic Forum and its alliances with other corporations and with other organizations like the Rockefeller Center and the Rothschilds and the banking system, the IMF and the central banks. But the speed with which it is now progressing is breathtaking. The following is an audiogram I did from a YouTube video. I have no idea who the speaker is, but he sounds an awful lot like Greg Reese from InfoWars, and I like his voice an awful lot. That's why I took his voice, and I'm going to insert it right here. Here we go.
The Bank of China told their depositors that their savings accounts are now investment products and can no longer be withdrawn. And to stop the people from trying to withdraw their money, the CCP deployed tanks. Banks all over the world are imploding.
And in relation to that, I see in independent.ie that the Bank of England is asking people to get rid of old paper notes before they become worthless. They know that there are huge amounts of cash under people's mattresses, both in England and in Ireland. And the reason that England is calling for the people to exchange their paper notes is that from September the 30th, the paper bank notes will no longer be accepted as legal tender anywhere in the UK, meaning anyone left holding them will lose their money. So that means you have 2 months until the end of September to get your stashes out and exchange them. If you're in Ireland, exchange them into euros, and if you're in England, you may lodge them in your bank accounts. Imagine. And then something like in China will happen. When I see that they mention that the Central Bank of Ireland still accepts old punts that went out of circulation with the introduction of the euro 20 years ago. And the rate back then was 1 Irish punt equaled 127 euros. The Central Bank of Ireland even accepts damaged notes. Last week we had the Bank of Ireland announcing that they would no longer be dealing in any way in cash at 70 of their branches. And this came kind of overnight, although we all know we're heading for a cashless society, but people were very surprised and very annoyed, and there was a huge uproar for a couple of days until the bank told the government that they would withdraw the idea for the time being anyway. And I think we all know that this is just a reprieve. This is not a final solution, because we are heading toward a cashless society. We are heading towards the social credit system where you won't be able to spend anything of the virtual money if you haven't subscribed to all the communist ideologies and observed all the rules and regulations that they will impose upon every single citizen. What we can do is to make it as difficult as possible for them to control our money and to withhold it from us, like it happened there in China. And don't think it cannot happen here, because it can, because it is true that when we put money in the bank, when we leave our salaries there, when we leave our income there, we are handing it over to them. They are in charge of that money, and we are giving them a free hand with it until we withdraw it. So the best thing is to withdraw it straight away as soon as your income hits the bank, and you don't need it to stay there for payments or for direct debits. And take it out and spend it in cash. The Bible contains more than 500 references to prayer and almost 500 references to faith, but it has more than 2,000 references to money and possessions. Of the 37 parables told by Jesus in the Gospels, 17 deal with property and our responsibility for using it wisely. That's interesting facts. There's a chap in the World Economic Forum. I think he's second in command. He's very high up there anyway. Does a lot of talking together with Klaus Schwab. His name is Yuval Noah Harari. You can listen to an excerpt from one of his speeches here now.
To think about the abilities of gods according to various mythologies, we are now acquiring these abilities to ourselves. Like in the Bible, God is the creator. His chief power is to create. He creates animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. Now we are gaining this power to create life, just like God, and in a way, we even go beyond the biblical God. Because even if you believe the Bible, the only thing God managed to create are organic beings. All these trees and giraffes and humans, they are just organic. But we are now trying to create inorganic entities, inorganic life forms, cyborgs, artificial intelligence, and so forth. If we succeed, and there is a very good chance we will, then very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution.
You can really hear the contempt in his voice when he talks about everything organic, humans and giraffes. It's as if he hates everything that is made by God. That's why they want to get rid of them. That's why they want to get rid of us. and the animals because we are made by God, and they want to obliterate everything that God created, and they want to start up a new society with artificial intelligence and created by them. It's a repetition, really, of the building of the Tower of Babel, where they wanted to be greater than God, where they wanted to reach up to the skies to where God was supposed to be and surpass everything he ever created. And that's why they're talking about the sixth event of mass extinction. And if you remember, it all kind of started off a couple of years ago with Greta Thunberg and her Extinction Rebellion. But what will happen is they want to wipe off everything organic, everything that God created from the face of the earth, so that it will appear as if it is an evolutionary process, and if there are some survivors, the history books that will be in existence will call it a natural extinction of life in the 21st century, which was replaced by artificial intelligence, and they will say this was a natural process, because they're also talking about the Internet of Things, the fourth industrial revolution, which we are also experiencing. That is the merging of humans with machines, with computers. Some people, of course, are saying that the jabs that have been inflicted on us for the past 2 years now, that they are the first step in this merging of technology with the human being. And if you remember, I spoke before of Dr. Carrie Madej. She said right from the beginning that that would actually change the whole concept of what it means to be human, and she was calling it Human 2.0. But whatever is going on, anyway, it is very sinister, because we are getting reports of how the jab spot that is injected is magnetic. We are getting reports of a frequency being emitted from the area. And most alarming to me is something I read recently about the babies that survive the whole procedure are born different. There's something different about these babies. Some of them have black eyes, as you would remember from science fiction movies, where they have aliens with dark eyes, and people have noticed this, physicians have noticed this and are beginning to talk about it. So it will be interesting to see what is going to happen in that respect in the near future. We need to keep an eye on the children in general, especially parents, young parents need to keep a watchful eye on what their children are exposed to. I heard now recently that not only are they being taught the depravity of perverted sexual relations, but they are now going to be taught about assisted suicide in schools. This is not in Ireland now, but whatever is done in other countries will be coming to Ireland eventually, and it will appear on the curriculum, maybe even without you knowing it, unless you keep a watchful eye on what is going on. So we've got that Harari guy with his artificial intelligence and his cyborgs, and Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum breathing down our necks 24/7. And anytime our government makes an announcement, you can be sure that it has something to do with the World Economic Forum, because we hear different leaders of different countries announcing much the same measures at different times the last 2 years. And I said right from the beginning, and I refrain from saying I told you so. I said right from the beginning that the emergency laws that were introduced, they opened the back door to letting in other measures, other entities to take over areas of our lives, such as now we are experiencing with the carbon emissions, that so many restrictions have been put on the Irish people and on the Irish farmers in particular, who are the heart of our economy and our country, because they provide us with the food that comes onto our tables and onto the fork, as they say. These people have been restricted now in what they can produce and what they're allowed to produce. If they continue doing it, they're going to be penalised. So these people are breathing down your neck 24/7. And just looking back here at something that the World Economic Forum predicted a couple of years ago, is that people will own nothing. Goods are either free of charge or must be lent from the state. That is rule number one. And they will confiscate all private property, and it will become property of the state. So you'll be renting it, you can rent it there and enjoy it, your own property, but it won't belong to you. The United States will no longer be the leading superpower, but a handful of countries will dominate. So it'd be interesting to see which countries that will be. Organs will not be transplanted, but printed. So that has to do with the lab meat that we were talking about. They take the cells from an animal and they print out steaks and stuff that looks like meat but isn't meat. Meat consumption will be minimized. Of course, it will be minimized, I assume, to the privileged few who will, of course, they will continue to have their steaks whenever they feel like it. Number 5 says that massive displacement of people will take place with billions of refugees. Well, at the moment, Ireland is looking at 1 million refugees by 2040. And I invite you, in relation to 2040, I invite you to look at the website that I will also be posting, called Ireland 2040. And it will show you the plans that are in place for an Ireland in the next couple of decades. Ireland will be no longer, as we know it, made up of provinces and counties. There will be simply regions. Southeast region, northern, northwest, and it'll be divided up into these regions. And for each region, there's a plan of how many new people or new population will be added in a certain amount of time or a certain period of time. So that's where all the refugees will be going. And then number 6 says, to limit the emission of carbon dioxide, a global price will be set at an exorbitant level. Now, the carbon tax that we are seeing right now and that's been levied on our coal and turf products, that, of course, can be expected to be raised, and if not a separate carbon tax to be imposed on us at some stage. Number 7 says that people can prepare to go to Mars and start a journey to find alien life. I'm not going to say anything to that. Number 8 then is Western values will be tested to the breaking point. Well, right now, of course, we are being tested to the breaking point. There are many, many people who have opted to take their own lives rather than continue under the pressure they see themselves. And there'll be no privacy either. Everything will be monitored. Your whole life, your every movement will be monitored from morning to night. It is already, can be, but we're not really aware of it. Those of us who own a smartphone or any kind of a phone, our movements can be traced during any 24 hours, and that will become normal, the new normal, so to speak. Getting back now again to the lab meat, the meat grown in a laboratory. I'm sure some of you, or maybe most of you, have seen the video clips of celebrities eating insects and claiming they taste so good and we should be thinking of it ourselves. I actually saw a post somewhere that, and there was a photograph to go with it, that dried crickets are on sale at service stations. I think it's in Australia. I'm not sure now whether it was Australia or Canada, but at the service stations, you know, where you get all kinds of energy bars and things to keep you awake while you're driving long distances. They also had these crickets. And to put the crown on the whole thing, I came across a website the other day that claims to use celebrity tissue to make artisan salami. And the website is called Bite Labs. It's an official website, http://www.bitelabs.org. But it's not a secure site, I see here, so be very careful when you're opening it. The title is Eat Celebrity Meat. Bite Lab grows meat from celebrity tissue samples and uses it to make artisan salami. It all starts with your favorite celebrities and a quick biopsy to obtain tissue samples. Isolating muscle stem cells, we grow celebrity meat in our proprietary bioreactors. In the tradition of Italian cured meats, we dry, age and spice our product into fine charcuterie. And to justify it, they go on here to say that celebrity meat production requires less than 1% of the amount of land needed for traditional farming. Currently, 70% of the world's farmland, that's almost 30% of the entire Earth's surface, is used for raising animals. Meat production today is simply unsustainable unless a radical change is made. The price of meat will eventually rise out of control. Lab-grown meats are the future. Bite Lab meats are not affected by the growth hormones administered to farm animals, nor are they in contact with pesticides or other chemicals associated with industrial farming. The nutritional content of our products can be rigorously controlled. Farms are dirty and animals prone to infection. Bite Labs is a clean space where we can grow safer, healthier products. And some of the celebrities participating in this project is a guy called James Franco. And it says here, he's sexy, he's artsy, let's make him salami. The Franco salami must be smoky, sexy and smooth. Franco's meat will pair with lean, strong venison, sharp telly cherry peppercorns and caramelized onions provide Franco's underlying flavors, complemented by a charming hint of lavender. The Franco salami's taste will be arrogant, distinctive, and completely undeniable. I don't know who this Franco man is. Then we have Jennifer Lawrence, but I won't bother to read that out to you. And then we have Kanye West. The Kanye salami will pull no punches. Heavily and boldly flavored, pure Kanye West meat will blend with rich, coarse ground pork. Hungarian paprika and Worcestershire gives Kiney an underlying smokiness spiced with hints of jalapeno. The Kiney salami is best paired with strong, straight bourbon. And then there's this Ellen DeGeneres. Well, we know her, or we thought we knew her. But she's associated with Jeffrey Epstein. She has been linked to him and to his pedophile island. So it's no surprise really that she's involved in this. She has been reputed to have eaten infants herself. That's just a rumor, but there could be truth to it. I'll include that website also in the description. So before I sign off, I want to mention another website that I came across, and it has to do with a new Council for Inclusive Capitalism, which was launched with the Vatican involved recently. And it says here, to that end, 28 organizations, including BP, Johnson & Johnson, MasterCard, Merck, Salesforce, the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations, have announced 230 commitments, guided by a focus on equality of opportunity, irrespective of socio-economic background, gender, ethnicity, religion, or age, equitable outcomes, fairness across generations, and fairness to those whose circumstances prevent them from full participation in the economy. The commitments are aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It seems to be very interesting, and as usual, the language is very veiled. But when I hear the full participation in the economy, I have heard this somewhere before, that the very poor have no bank accounts and stuff like that. And they will be drawn into this web of new economy where in actual fact their every move will be controlled the same as everybody else. There'll be no earning on the side, no living from donations and from almsgiving. Everything will be controlled. It could well be linked to the universal basic income, where everybody will be included. And when you see that a Rothschild, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, is involved, you can be sure that it's not to your and my benefit. But have a look at this website anyway and let me know what you think. I'll sign off with a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn that goes, "Unless our civilization is redeemed spiritually, it cannot endure materially." And that just about sums it up. Bye-bye for now. Look after yourselves and do look out for one another. Oh yes, and today is August the 2nd, 2022. I said at the beginning that I'd mention the date that I'd finish this podcast.